And hello again, dear ones. Dr. Robert with you on the New Thought Media Network. We've got something special in store for you tonight. I'm so grateful that you're here and tuning in. Is New Thought in Hospice, and who gets to make that call? An inspired panel discussion, and boy, do I have an amazing group of people stacked up in the green room for you. So I want to give you a little overview of what's going to happen tonight. We're not going to introduce everybody immediately. We'll be doing some introductions as we go along with everybody, and we're going to bring them onto the stage. The guy who got all of this started, really, Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson, Reverend Dr. David Alexander, Bishop Durrell Watkins, Reverend Cindy Grimes out of Ocala, Florida, and Reverend KC Taylor. I am Reverend Dr. Robert Brzezinski, your moderator for this evening. And here's how it's all going to go, folks. We've got about 90 minutes. Now, you have fingers and you have a keyboard in front of you in some way, and that means you're allowed to participate. So at any point in time, feel free to chat along and chime along with us, ask questions, drop your questions in the comment. We're going to have an opportunity later this evening to answer some of those questions and make sure our panel gets a chance to speak to those. We're going to begin this evening with opening statements by each of the panelists. I'll do a very brief introduction before them, and then they each get 4 minutes to share. Our opening question is New Thought in Hospice, and who gets to make that call? I made up that second part myself, Raymont. I hope you don't mind I tagged that on for you. And that's where we're going to get it all started is Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson. He is currently on the East Coast, and I've totally blundered your intro already, Raymont. So, yes.
Anybody want to know me, come look for me.
I believe he has a prophetic voice in this New Thought movement, and others do as well. And you brought the whole question up, Raymont, so you're going to get the first 4 minutes to tell us, is New Thought in Hospice, and who gets to make that call?
And go. So let's start with the second part first. Who gets to say? For me, anyone gets to say. Anyone who is in New Thought, is curious about New Thought, has a thought about New Thought. Like anybody and everybody, their voices matter. Their concerns matter. But there's an important piece to be able to discern that there are some who share from a place of liberating, and there are some who share from a place of further ensnaring. So being clear in terms of how are we discerning which voices are actually helping to, what's the word? Revitalize what New Thought can be. Now, first part. So for me, the question really isn't, is New Thought in hospice? Because New Thought isn't. The answer is no. The philosophy, the teaching is fine. The question is, for me, the question is, to what degree is the current New Thought culture, climate, the communities, the churches, the centers, the curriculum, and the content, to what degree is this stuff actually meeting people where they are? Like, that's the thing. Are we meeting people where they are in ways that are relevant and applicable and meaningful? So that's the question. Is that stuff in life support or in hospice? Because if we really look at, there are a lot of centers. Many of the people who are on the panel with me now, my esteemed colleagues who I love and appreciate, each of us are doing various things to bring the teaching and what it offers to the masses. But we aren't the movement. Movement-wide, there are a lot of gaps. We do not meet the needs of people. Where are the deaf people? Where's the sign language access? Do we have stuff for people who are visually impaired and blind? Do we have stuff in Braille? Do we have centers that have ramps or elevators? Like, there's a lot of things referencing where we are not meeting people where they are. For me, that's where the conversation starts. How are we ensuring that we are providing this in a new, upgraded way for the climate now? How are we bringing the teaching to social media platforms, the TikTok, et cetera, wherever the young people are? Matter of fact, speaking of young people, are we actually presenting this in a way where the young people want it? Or are we doing what has been done before, where they look at what we do and they're like, it's just church. You just changed a couple of words about what God is and whatnot, but it's the same box format that my grandparents and my parents. I'm not doing that. So once again, for me, it's a matter of really looking at how are we having those challenging and confrontational conversations about transgender rights. We have people in New Thought, ministers in New Thought, who are folks who voted for a certain person who is currently in office. How do you stand for oneness when everything he represents is anti-oneness and unity? So the conversation, how are we meeting people? How are we bringing the teaching to these people? How are we staying relevant and current? How are we bringing AI into this, if that's the conversation? All of these things that I am not seeing in grand spaces, I want those. I want us to be talking about that. Because once again, for me, New Thought isn't in hospice, but the way we're presenting it is certainly on life support.
Reverend. Thank you, sir. Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson. Thank you. All right. Next up from chilly Oklahoma City, I believe. I think it's chilly all over the country right now, so everybody's kind of bundled up. But one of the newest voices, I'm going to say, on New Thought Media Network, one of the newer people that I know out of everybody in this group, and newly aligned minister with, is it Center for Spiritual Living Oklahoma City? I'm going to forget, but she'll help us fill in all the gaps. Reverend Casey Taylor. Oh, and we've got you, dear one. So
yep, that's me. I'll push the button. I appreciate it, Robert. My name is Reverend Casey Taylor. I use they, them pronouns, and so grateful to go after Reverend Raymont, and grateful that he posted this question and noted that the concept of New Thought itself is not in hospice, that these ideas are transcending in ways that really never have in history. And the remarkable thing about it to me is that the traditional New Thought communities have had nothing to do with it. It's the concept, the wisdom, spirituality transcends whatever we're doing in these organizations. And the way that we are moving I can only speak for the Centers for Spiritual Living for myself. This is the only organization that I've been affiliated with because it does resonate with me so closely that I aligned with it and chose to persist. It really helped that I started out at the Bodhi Center for Spiritual Living in Chicago, which is not at all the way that the majority of centers for spiritual livings around the country operate. So I got an introduction to a young, vibrant arts community in the city that in my mind, this is what I thought it was. And I thought that centers all over the country were just like this, and had to learn the hard way that I just happened to come into this in an anomaly, in a moment in time. And in my experience of that was when I was 28, became a minister when I was 35. I completed my program at 35. And I've always been someone who, it wasn't my intention, but found myself representing the next generation of spiritual leaders. I'm highly involved in Next Gen, which is the group dedicated to that within our movement. And we have been fledgling and small and underfunded and unsupported. And for me as a minister in our movement, I have been unsupported. And I've had the Next Gen team to support me every step of the way, this small overextended team, but the larger community hadn't really been there for me. And a big part of it just has to do with logistics, that my ministerial program lost its affiliation the year that I graduated, and the organization that I'm a part of was not equipped on how to deal with that. So it took me 5 years to be affiliated officially with the organization. And So now I've been a minister for 9 years, but I'm still kind of treated like a brand new minister. On paper, I'm a brand new minister. And when I applied for centers all over the country, when I got the call to ministry, it's a pulpit ministry, and my resume is ridiculous because I didn't plan to be a pulpit minister. And I've been affiliated, involved in centers all over the country. I've been speaking, doing workshops, leading the charge of the next generation of spiritual leaders. And none of the traditional centers were interested in me. Most of them didn't bring me in to meet their community, or if they did bring me in to meet the community and it went well, they still didn't put me forward for a vote. So the experience of me being in Oklahoma City, it was just a moment in time when the senior minister stepped away. I was there to hold and shepherd the community, and I've rebranded Sundays to Spiritually Uncuffed and are doing church the way that Reverend Raymont said that young people are looking for. It's uncuffed. We're moving to 1 p.m., which is a time that is convenient for everyone in the community, and doing things differently. It's not the same song that a meditation. The structure is different every time. I've been doing it kind of monthly to keep myself sane and making each month be like, this month we're doing a sound bath. So Spiritually Uncuffed is the way that I'm doing this, but I feel very alone in this. And I'm glad that Cindy Grimes will be speaking, and she's doing this too. So y'all will hear more about this.
Yes, we will. Right on. Thank you, Reverend. All right, next up, Reverend Dr. David Alexander, currently making a splash on Substack with the Liberation Lens. And I'm telling you, folks, if I know where I'm getting my material for Sunday mornings or afternoons, and you also, David, have moved to a Sunday afternoon. You get the luxury of, you can listen to anybody you want in the morning and have your own talk in the afternoon. But
that's exactly right.
So
and we meet at 3:00 at a Unitarian church here in Atlanta, and then we have dinner afterwards and an education hour. It's a great format, and one of many CSLs that I think that I know of that are meeting in Unitarian spaces. So yeah, this question. Thanks, Raymont, for the question, and so happy to follow the inspiring work that Casey is doing in Oklahoma. It's really, really awesome to hear all about that. And I agree with what, everything that's been said in terms of what we identify as New Thought. The principles are eternal. They existed before we had organizations that named them and tried to corral them and call them their own. We know that, and they'll exist after that. They are currently being adopted and adapted in circles that we don't consider New Thought. There are what I call kind of New Wave Pentecostal circles that are very curious about Ernest Holmes and affirmative prayer and all of that work, and want to adapt that work into what they do. And we don't have the corner on that. We're not, they're not licensing what they're doing through us or anything like that. So it's cat's out of the bag in that regard, and that's a good thing, right? And then we have these structures called organizations that, the one that several of us are a part of, CSL, has changed its name several times since its existence. It's had, it's incorporated and reincorporated. It's been the Institute. It's been the International Association of Religious Science Churches. It's been United. It's been International. It's been Church of Religious Science, Centers for Spiritual Living. And it may be something else at some other time if that's appropriate at that particular time. So, and then Unity, same thing. They're going, are we Christian? Are we not Christian? The Unity School of Christianity is going, are we Christian? So here's what I want to say about all that. I think sometimes we occupy ourselves with these questions. Are we an organization or not an organization? Are we affiliation? Are we an education or a church? Are we Christian or not Christian? Are we whatever? And, it's like staring at our navel and being fascinated by it. And all of us, all the leaders and ministers and people who've done classes and whatnot, we're fascinated by that conversation. But the person on the street, the person outside of our church, the person who's searching for how to make their life better, wants to know something about this thing that they saw scroll through their TikTok called the law of attraction, or how to manifest, or whatever their entry point was of curiosity, they're not really interested in us answering that question at all. Right. We want to go back to relevancy. We want to say, what are you saying to me, to my life, to what's on the news, to, what's happening with, trans rights or women's rights or healthcare or education, or pick a topic today. It's all just about everything. What do you say to those things? And, the price of eggs and just how I move about my world. What does your theology, philosophy, whatever you want to call it, what you do, whenever you do it, what does it have to say to me? And are some of those ways and structures in hospice? Yes, because much of the Western world is in hospice right now. I think I find it interesting that we spent the entire pandemic telling our communities that, this is our opportunity to change and to, we're not going back. Nobody's going back to normal. Everybody, just so you know, you're not going back to normal. And now we're all going back to trying to do the same thing again. So are we surprised that it's all falling apart now and that there are people trying to tear it all down? So we need to adapt and be flexible in relation to that. And I know my time is done.
Beautiful. Thank you, Dr. David. All right. Next up, Reverend Cindy Grimes. By the way, folks, I'm throwing the formal introductions out the window here tonight. So what I want you to know about Reverend Cindy Grimes is I had to go a quarter of the way around the country, and she had to go halfway around the country for us to bump into each other and get to know each other. That all happened at the Big Sky Retreat in 2021. And since then, it has been a pleasure to be witness to the amazing work you're doing down in Ocala, and to what I've learned of your history even long before that work that you've done. You're a real expert in the justice and social justice realm from my perspective. I was so excited to see you join in the conversation, and so excited when you said yes to being with us. Let's give you 4 minutes and some opening time.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm really just honored to be part of this panel. And I've been laying off of social media a little bit. It's so much drama, so much stuff. But I couldn't help myself when Raymont posed the question, because in my life, one of my lives before ministry, I was actually a hospice social worker. And so, as all of you have said, our teaching is perennial. It's applicable. It's important for folks to, for us to be able to navigate this craziness that we're in right now. But as we've also said, I think the organization, I wonder if it's not in hospice. And one of the things that I learned working for hospice is that you can get a diagnosis, but that doesn't mean that it's the end, because there are people who get on hospice and suddenly they're surrounded by love and care and experiences that they were not having before, and they have these miraculous recoveries. I had patients that got off of hospice and were healed. So I think we really need to pay attention to where we are. And as David said, it feels like the whole Western world right now is in hospice to some degree or another. After the pandemic, I took a whole different take. I actually had someone years ago say to me that she was no longer being fed by the teaching. She'd been in it for years and years, and she wasn't being fed and was going to be on her way, and hurt my feelings a little bit. But, I kind of pushed through that and said, well, since you know so much, would you be interested in maybe teaching a class? And she said, well, I don't want to do that. And that for me was kind of a wake up. I realized that I want to work with people and be in community with people who are out there in the world trying to make it a better place, not sit back and feed me, take care of me. I raised 3 kids. I got grandchildren. I'm not here to take care of anybody else. I'm not here to be your guru. What I did then was to come and create a space where people could show up and be their authentic selves. And so when we came back from the pandemic, we decided to do things differently. Every week is a different way of doing spiritual community. First week, we do spiritual practices. So it's very involved, more like what you would do in a class, but I invite people from our community to present so folks get to know who is in the community. Super Second Sunday is our most traditional service where people can sit back and be observers. Third Sunday is Circle Conversations, where we invite everyone to share their voice. Everyone is seen, everyone is heard, everyone is acknowledged, and we learn from one another. Fourth Sunday, we're mixing it up. So people can be participants or they can be observers in having it more of a podcast type format. So we've really cultivated and invited a group of people here that are in the world doing this. Like, we're not having the debate in our center about whether we should be involved socially. It's a given. It's a given. And it's a whole new community than what we had before the pandemic. And so that's my approach with it. I'll never forget going to the CSL in Asheville with John and Barbara Waterhouse and finding out that the mayor of the town was part of their community. That planted a seed for me. If we really truly believe what we believe, and we're here to try to make the world a better place and something that works for all of us, why isn't it working? We're these incredible, amazing manifestors. And we just, instead of applying our teaching to finding parking spots and adding zeros to the numbers in our bank account, that we start to heal the relationships that we have in our families, in our neighborhoods, in our workplaces, in our communities. And we just apply this healing modality to our relationships and actually uncovering that oneness that exists and our interconnectedness. And
beautiful. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you. All right. Wow. Questions are coming in on the chat box. Thank you, folks. Keep those coming, because in our second segment, we're going to do some questions from the audience and further discussions. We've got some long form question and answer time coming up a little bit later in the program. However, we do want to get to our final panelist. And this is the one where I say, folks, I like to strike while the iron is hot. And we put this panel together pretty quick, and a couple of days later, Bishop Durrell Watkins makes a comment and chimes in and gives and adds a very thoughtful and in-depth aspect to the whole conversation. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, he needs to be part of what we're doing. Let's get his voice, and graciously accepted the invitation to be with us tonight. So what I want you to know is Durrell is an auxiliary bishop for the Global Justice Institute. I am going to read one official bio. And he's in his third term as the president of the Divine Science Federation. He's the senior minister of Sunshine Cathedral in Fort Lauderdale, as the dean of the Samaritan Institute, Science of Mind Ministerial School, and has ministerial credentials from Metropolitan Community Churches, the International Council of Community Churches. He's earned a Master's of Arts, Master's of Divinity, and Doctor of Ministry degrees. He and his husband, Bishop Robert Griffin, have been together for 25 years now. And I had the pleasure to visit with you a little over a year and a half ago now at the last time the INTA conference was there in Fort Lauderdale, and boy, did you guys put on a great show. What a great ministry. I've been following you ever since, and it's a real pleasure to have you along with us tonight, sir. So let's give you 4 minutes for some opening thoughts.
Okay. I am the least expert person on the panel. I've been in New Thought for decades, but not like anyone else has been in New Thought. I am deeply ecumenical. I usually say that I am religiously polyamorous, that I am honestly open at the top. That's our cousin's phrase over at Science of Mind. We're divine science, but still, it's true. And so I'm just always trying to find what works. And then if it works, I tell people about it. And that's just how I've done my entire ministry. I've been doing this daily since 1992. And along the way, I sort of stumbled into New Thought, and then pursuing that, I stumbled into divine science. But also, I didn't somehow just wind up joining the club. In fact, I had a mentor who was religious science, And she said, when are you just going to come over? Because I was in all the youth churches. And then she stopped herself. She said, nope, you're where you're supposed to be. And sure enough, that I've done things as a sort of free agent that I couldn't do any other way, I think. So I have an experience, and then I share the experience. I'm an open book. When I came out of the closet 116 years ago, when I was a teenager, I just learned that nothing thrives in a dark, dank closet. Maybe mushrooms, but most things don't. And so I'm out about everything. And so I have a experience, and I share it. So when I was diagnosed with HIV, I told people. And then when I was still around for the medicines, and the medicines worked, I told people. And that I have been HIV positive since 1991, and I've never had an opportunistic infection. I tell people. And I credit that to New Thought, because without thinking differently, I would have just bought into whatever the current wisdom was. And the current wisdom was, this is hopeless. If you have anyone to call them. And if you have anything to sign it, because sorry about you. But I had a Science of Mind mentor who, when I told her, I call her, I'm ready for sympathy. She's older. She's a big, soft lady with big hair and makeup and jewelry on every. And so I'm thinking, I'm going to call Granny, and she's going to feel sorry for me and hug me. And we're going to cry together, and I'm going to feel it's going to be cathartic. I do that, and her response is, so I'm telling her, I got it. Her immediate response was, oh, honey, that's just information. And I swear that statement saved my life. That this is just, I got a parking ticket. I was late for work. I tested positive for HIV. And it was just one more thing that happened that day. And when I was able to think of it that way, well, I'm 58 years old, and I've been married 25 years, and we have a kid, we have a house, and I have a career. I mean, that was not what they were saying in 1991. But luckily, I met a lady. Now, that lady started her ministry at 60, retired about 93, and then died the next year. Her husband left her, and she had kids and grandkids. And she's like, well, now what? Well, she started a whole new life and was super successful at it. And then she, meanwhile, she was also into other things. People didn't get her. She was into angels and Course in Miracles and Rancha, some stuff that I didn't understand. But she is the one who showed me, do everything you want to do. And if it works, tell people about it. And someone's going to benefit from that. And that's how I run my ministry. And it's a thriving ministry. It's affiliated with so many things, no one knows that it's affiliated with anything. And yet that seems to work for us. And so I'm just trying to practice truth, live it, and share it when it works, which is a lot of the time.
Beautiful. Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right, folks, we're going to take a real brief break, let our panelists have a sip of water and perhaps a little stretch, let you run to the bathroom if you need, but please don't. We got some important things we want to share with you that are happening here around the New Thought Media Network. We'll be back in just a minute or so with our next segment. Get ready. It's going to get wild. See you in a minute. And we're back with more on the New Thought Media Network. This is a special one-time evening event. Is New Thought in Hospice, and who gets to make that call? As I listen to our initial opening statements, it seems obvious that Dr. Raymont, your question has been thoroughly, I think, in some ways, just dismissed. No, we're not in hospice. The philosophy, New Thought is not in hospice. But I do also hear an agreement, and I believe the chat box would agree with us also, that the forms are changing. And I don't want to lay a needs to change. We've been having this conversation, I think, for quite a while. Dr. Dave, I think it was you that said, we're kind of getting what we've been praying for a while now, and here we are getting it. It's just not quite in the form that we thought we were going to get it in. And so that leads me to that question. And I want you to know, we got a lot of really good questions going on in the chat box. So Vicky, we see you. Robert, we see you. Linda, Tracy Brown, we see you. Linda Rapond, we see you. We know, and we're going to get to many of these questions as we go here tonight. But to kind of get us into that, what's really coming to me is how how do we use the opportunity for engagement to become something more? And what is New Thought becoming in light of the opportunities in front of us for engagement? We don't have to make Raymont go first on this one.
Oh, but he can.
Oh, but he can. Oh, well, there we go. We've got a volunteer, folks.
No, I'm gonna keep it real short and simple. If we were really focused on and aligned with oneness in terms of what it means to build relationships, everything else would take care of itself. If we were in active relationship with the people in our communities, rather than someone put in the chat a comment about the CEO minister. Well, the CEO minister has a job, right? It's a job. Their job is not to be in intimate relationship with a variety of people in the community. Like they're not trying to be friends with the transgender people, and they're trying to get their money. Like, I need you to tithe because the Lord is like, that's what they need. That's the purpose. It's not relationship, which is why a lot of people go to our churches and centers and they don't feel like they belong. They attend, but they don't belong. And then when you have certain people in the pulpit referencing things, or they see things on social media where ministers will say things that are anti-trans, I don't belong in that community, because that minister represents the movement. Just like we know that there are Christian nationalists who represent Christianity, but they don't. But on the surface, they do, because they're using the terms. If we are building relationships, let's get to know the people in, not just those who are within the four walls, but I'm talking about like a new thought 4.0. Serve the people who want the celebration and they want the music. Not everybody wants that. Some people I just want to learn. Give me opportunities to learn. Provide potluck for those who want those social events. Provide the Sunday service for those who want that. Provide the opportunity for people to, workshops and training, and, I want to do the yoga and stuff. Provide the opportunities when we meet the people where they are, because we're in relationship with them. We know who they are. We know what they need. And the rest will take care of itself because we're in relationship.
I don't know if we're going in order, but I'll just pop in right after him. As this concept of, I appreciate that Tracy Brown talked about this shift away from minister centric, and Cindy talked about how her community has this circle time, and Reverend David talked about how we're in this place where none of our systems are working, that the same issues that these organizations, these concrete organizations are facing are the same issues that every other American institution is facing. And I'm in this mindset of recognizing that empowering other people to have a voice, that's one of the shifts, is, yes, absolutely, investing in the business of it, because you can't have a successful organization unless somebody knows how to file the taxes. That's been a challenge for me as I've stepped into this role. And the other piece of it is, my intention is for it not to be minister centric. So I have these, like the month of February has just been conversations. I prepared no formal talk, but I'm doing a combination of some, so that is provided for the people who want it, and for people that want to have a voice, have an opportunity to do that. And the piece about the fact that collectively as a country, we're all going through this. And I think Reverend Raymont is one of our champion speakers around this concept of the fact that white supremacy is so firmly rooted in our culture. A lot of the challenges that the New Thought organizations are having is just based on our education. Right now, I'm about to launch a book study on the book Original Sins, the miseducation of Black and Native children. And it's just really about how our school systems are designed to continue this cycle of white supremacy that we've been stuck in. And when our spiritual leaders have had one diversity class taught by our illustrious Tracy Brown, who that one class changed my whole world, but it's one class, versus we're not teaching anything around inclusion. It's not required to become a practitioner. It's a little bit in the practitioner training, but not in the in-depth that we really need it. And I think a big part of it is just based on our collective miseducation. So the issues, all of the issues that we're facing, including who is president today, is the result of the fact that we've all been steeped in white supremacy. And as Rev David said about, the pandemic created this opportunity for some of that shift to occur. And I think it's occurred for some of us, and we are doing that work, and it is at the beginning stages. And especially love that the focus groups were met, or the focus ministries were mentioned, because focus ministries speak a lot about how underrepresented and underserved they feel in our movements, in the same way that I spoke to my leadership at Spirit Uncensored and with Next Gen being underserved. So I feel like that sounds like a great big call to action within our organization, is really shifting our focus to prioritize and show some love and some support, and look at the kinds of things that focus ministries are doing as we're in this place of evolution.
Beautiful. Thank you, Casey. Yeah, I will say that I'm pleasantly surprised in the chat bar, in the chat room, that we're seeing a lot more recognition of focus ministry, and I think, and I've been beating that drum for a solid 7 or 8 years now, so it's nice to see that actually showing up in the consciousness of our community and our organization. So who's else? Other thoughts? Who wants to go?
I can go. I know, unless you want to go, David, because you were next in the lineup.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. So I have a focus ministry as well as my pulpit ministry, and my focus ministry is in teaching peace building skills. So it's social emotional learning, leadership development, it's understanding trauma, it's understanding resilience, and it fits so beautifully with what we teach, in New Thought. And so I have a foot in both worlds. And so for me, it's pulling like the folks who are the spiritual seekers, who life is wonderful when they're laying on their yoga mat, and then there's the activists on the other side who are like all about action. And as somebody told me, I don't want to hear that nonsense about, peace starts here. It needs to start out here. So somehow bringing these two parts together, and my vision, my dream is that people, that New Thought communities are the peace builders of the world, because we come to this from this understanding and recognition, at least up here, if not in here, that we are really one. But how do we experience that? How do we get past the separation and the drama and all of that? So most of what we do in our center is based around the idea of being in circle. Now, whether I'm the one standing up front and it's not a Circle Sunday, I still carry myself as part of the circle of this community. Now, in circles, everyone is seen, everyone is heard, everyone is acknowledged. You can't hide in a circle, but it also means that there's nobody higher or better than anybody else. And I've taught this peace building work to university professors, to police officers, to middle school and high school kids, to people in prison. It's the same principles. And just when I think like we ought to have it together, right? Or just like the university professors, I mean, y'all are teaching psychology. Why don't you have it together? And then I have to go, oh no, my bad for thinking that because somebody had some letters next to their name or some kind of degree, that they were more than human, and they were not prone to the drama that happens in human relationship. So we can all learn it. It's the same stuff, I'm telling you, whether it's teaching middle school kids or ministers and college professors, that this is our humanness. We are spiritual beings, but we are having a human experience. And this is where we have to meet people in their humanity. Part of why I'm so engaged in this work is because I'm at the intersection of a lot of different lives. And so I'm a brown-skinned person who is in a family of law enforcement officers. I'm on one side of the political spectrum where my parents and other loved ones are clear across the other side, and I don't want to write them off. That's not who I am. So I want to, for myself, understand how to be able to engage with people when we seem like we are so far apart, knowing that we are truly all one, right, at the core. So those are like the basic kind of principles that I think we need to have in our centers a little bit more of. It's like the how-to. We have the big vision, but then what are the practical kinds of steps, and what things can we put in place to get us from where we are, which also requires truth telling. right? To say, this is the fact of where we are. We live in a white supremacist society. We do. Acknowledge that, because we can't go where we want to go. Like you can't put something in your GPS and say, I live in Florida. I want to get to San Diego. My GPS has to know where I am to give me the directions to where I'm going to go. If I don't know where I am, there's no way to get there. We we don't have the map. So I think this is part of the tough conversations, the difficult things that we need to be able to speak about in community. And it feels like, to me, if we can't do it in New Thought, what hope is there for anybody else? Because we come from this teaching of oneness and interdependence.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I love everything you're doing, Cindy. And I would just add, like, that idea of where we are and acknowledging so many wonderful comments. And there's some questions I hope we get to in the thread there. I just to point out that we're in the midst of a cultural shift. And that cultural shift is bigger than New Thought. It's, everything around us. And that cultural shift is from the me, I, self-centric, personal development, which New Thought's version of that has been spiritual capitalism, right? Our spiritual centers as a spiritual marketplace. You pay for classes, you do the personal development work. And why do you do that? Well, because you're developing yourself. It's, you're doing that so that you get a better job, you get a better relationship, you get a better car, you get a better house, whatever. It's very self-centric and that came in that, and people think that some of our critique is that we're critiquing New Thought in regards to that. One of the things I point out in my book is that New Thought has not always been that. New Thought's been through several phases, and in the beginning, when it was predominantly run by women, it was a healing teaching, and it had a deep social orientation to it, and it was deeply entrenched with the women's suffrage movement and a social lens. It wasn't racially diverse at that time, so we got to be honest about that. But from the white women who were engaged, they were having, this deeper societal liberation conversation. It then shifted when the world around it shifted, the Industrial Revolution and World War I and then World War II, and the growth of the suburbs and economic development and me and mine and everybody get your little white picket fence and all of that. And New Thought swept up into that, and it became the church of personal development. And that's what we did. And we grew during that time because we were the church that was answering that particular moment that was the thrust of society at that time. That time is over. And that's what New Thought is wrestling with right now, is that period is done. Like when you, especially to the younger generation, right? You might still have some boomers who are still interested in some of that stuff. But when you talk about personal development work, like literally the young people in my community, they literally gag when I say personal development. They're like, personal development? Like what in the what? No, we got to fix this world. Do you realize we're going to run out of clean water? Do you realize the planet is burning up? You want me to know my Enneagram? Like what? No. What are you doing? Right. And so it's shifting to a more collective orientation, and that's a liberation, and I'll just leave that there. That's a liberation theology. I wrote a whole book about it, so I'm not going to spend time talking about it here. But moving to that collective relationship based, as Raymont said, building community around that, which is going to look a lot of different ways. And it can still happen on Sunday at 9 or 10 if you want, but it can happen at 1, it can happen at 3, it can happen in people's houses, it can happen in the park, it can, all that kind of stuff. But it's that shift from the individual back to the collective. And one last thing I say about that, this is not the first time New Thought's been criticized. You go back 100 years ago, the critics of the early 1900s, New Thought was really well known by, people like George Bernard Shaw and Walter Rauschenbusch, all kinds of theologians and people, and they talked about it because New Thought was so popular. They all criticized us, and they said that we were self-centered and all about personal manifestation and prosperity, and too much of a shift from traditional Christian orthodoxy. And, I mean, their critique is very detailed and very fascinating to read. And they would be correct, except for one thing, and that is the principle of oneness. The principle of oneness changes everything, and the principle of oneness shifts us and orients us to a collective orientation of humanity, a world that works for all. Period. End of story. We voted on that, so let's get to it. I'm not going to drop the mic. It's expensive, but I'm out.
Robert, I have so many things going on because everyone's just saying great, and I want to respond to everybody. And then if I do that, I won't say what I have to say, and I'm overwhelmed. So I'm not going to give so much narrative. I just want to give bullet points, and hopefully that way I can get some stuff in without taking up 30 minutes or whatever. So one, we talk about meeting people where they are, and in my experience, because I used to say I've experienced a thing, so this must be how it is. That's not true. I know that this worked in my world, but in my experience, I meet people where they are by starting where I am. And so I've known people who they went to a conference, they went to Anton or they went to INTA or they got it. They are enlightened. People are now calling them the Buddha, the Christ. They're walking on water. Their shadow heals everyone it falls on. They're ready. They go to their home, their center, their church, or whatever. And okay, this is what we're going to do now. We're making this shift. We're going this way. We were slightly positive thinking, and now we're full on new thought. And if that church is alive 2 years later, it's rare. Or it was a church of 100, now it's a church of 10, or whatever. And so I haven't made that mistake by just grace, because I might have done. I just didn't somehow. But what has worked is I'm probably the most, my service probably looks the most traditional of anybody on this call. Maybe anybody watching this today. My church, you walk in, and at first, you might think you're in a Lutheran church or an Episcopal church or a Methodist church. Yeah. But then when the processional, and yes, we process, we wear the robes, the whole bit. But when you were processing to a Motown song, then you're like, okay, maybe something's different. Right? And and then when the introit is a country and western song, and in fact, half or more of our service is secular music. Then when what would have been the first lesson, what would have been the first Bible reading is from the Vedas, or from A Course in Miracles, or from a secular poem. Invictus comes out at least once a year. Like I will preach on the poem Invictus at least once a year. And so it looks, but that's where we are. We are. I mean, it's New York, Boston, Toronto annex, but it's still in the South. They're in Fort Lauderdale, and so we have people from all kinds of. We have a lot of Catholics, a lot of Protestants. Most of them are gay or lesbian or trans or non-binary or bisexual or pansexual or whatever. So we have these people who have that need. They also have people with what is familiar, and so when they walk in, it looks familiar. And once they're in there, they experience something new. Also, this is a retirement community. And so I've had the luxury of not ever worrying about young people, because for us, old is a renewable resource. People are always going to come to spend their last few years of life in Fort Lauderdale. So we've got some kids, because Dr. Cohn behind David there is actually the one who taught me. The more, I went to the seminary that he was professor at, the more particular you are, the more universal you are. So if you will speak your truth, someone is looking for that truth. Whatever you're selling, somebody wants to buy, but they can't buy it if they don't know that's what you've got to offer. So by being where we are, who we are, addressing from what we have to offer. What we had to offer was an organ and some stained glass windows. That's what we had. And by offering it, though, starting where we are, we have been more and more. Now, I've been there 19 years. So after 2 decades, you can do almost anything. But we have been able to meet people where they are, because we didn't deny or feel ashamed about where we are. This is what we have to start with. Let's do it. And now we feed 1,000 people a week who are food insecure, housing insecure. No paperwork, no questions. You say you need food every Wednesday, and you get to shop for yourself. We just open it up. We don't, we're not handing you a prepackaged thing or whatever. And I was criticized at first of that. Well, you're enabling, you're giving energy to poverty. And my answer always is, how do you know that we aren't their manifestation? How do you know when they are thinking of and dreaming of having needs met, we're not the answer to their prayer? And in any case, we can have our ideologies and thoughts and opinions. I'm going to let people be hungry because they're not getting it the way I thought it ought to work. So that's my struggle with our philosophy sometimes, is that, yes, we have all the answers, although everyone who ever thought that wound up being wrong eventually. But we have all the answers, but we also have humanity and compassion, and that has to be part of the equation. And so I think a lot of the people who aren't concerned about what's going on in the world right now is because it has been so me-focused instead of we-focused. But if God is all there is, how am I treating God who's sleeping on a bench? How am I treating God that didn't have breakfast this morning? How am I treating God who has now been legislated or adjudicated against in their own country because of their identity or because of who they love? Or if it's all God, then it must be blasphemy to ignore or intentionally hurt these various godlings. And so, but I can get that message out because people came to sing hymns and hear a sermon and blah, blah, blah. And what they hear is this. But because I caught them a bit off guard, they stay, and they'll say, they think I'm a genius. They think, oh my God, I've never heard this before. They think I'm amazing. They don't know that I'm quoting Nona Brooks. They don't know that omnipresence is all we, people, Cindy Lippert told me, she said, what you serve chicken all the time. All you ever serve is chicken. You fricassee it, you fry it, you boil it, you bake it, you barbecue it, but you have one thing, and that's the truth, omnipresence.
Reverend. All right. And we do have a lively discussion happening in the chat box, folks. So if you're watching on YouTube, feel free to join us there. If you're not watching on YouTube, feel free to join us over there. Because that's where the lively conversation is going. Alice Reed, we see you. Thanks. Welcome aboard. Christine, Willa Johnson, Robert Leeds, others, and Raymont and Casey are in there chatting as well. So, Raymont, give us a 30-second update. What's happening in the chat box?
So there's a lot going on currently. The word on the street is there are several questions and people are discussing their thoughts and their bullet points based upon what the panelists are sharing. Hold on, I think, oh yes, Casey has been commenting also in the chat. Oh my goodness, you should be on the scene right now.
I just spoke real quick about how the collaboration was key when the good bishop talked about his center feeding 1,000 people. Being new, what I'm doing is I'm partnering with the existing organizations that already exist. And it's helpful that I was a case manager in our community before this. So like I have these relationships already, but that collaboration piece of it is key. I also noted Brian made a comment about how a lot of centers music does not cater or meet the needs of young people. And I mentioned that diversity is important in all metrics. And one of the big hot topics in this chat has been about calling out white fragility, calling in, I should say, white fragility, and not ignoring it, and recognizing that it's important for us to create space for that authentic expression to heal and move forward and acknowledge what is for us to grow as an organization.
Beautiful. Thank you. We've got about 5 minutes before our next break, and that's the question that keeps popping out for me in the chat, and the audience, everybody watching seems to want to know, what can I do? And so let's do a kind of a speed round. What's one thing people can do to be involved and make a difference in what's happening in our world today? And I'm going to pick on Bishop Durrell to get us started, just because he's been going last the last couple of questions.
I think because you're going to get ideas and you're going to try things, and some are going to fail and some are going to succeed, and some are going to say, oh, well, you did that very well, but I have some expertise, let me do it. And you're wise to say, yes, please do, and all that. But one thing you can do, no matter if you're just starting or you've been doing it 1,000 years, is tell the truth. People are scared to tell the truth sometimes. And if you will just tell the truth, and people say, well, I don't want to get political. Well, guess what? You are. If you support oppression, that is political. If you resist oppression, that is political. And if you stay silent, that is political. So the question you have to ask yourself is, in what way am I going to be political? And then tell the truth.
Beautiful. Thank you. Dr. David.
Oh, I would say a couple of things. Yeah, tell the truth. I would say get involved, in whatever community, whether it's online or in person. I think we really need in-person community. It doesn't have to be church by the traditional sense, but get involved. I think we need community at this time. And what I would say is if you're a community and it's not showing up the way you want it to show up, that community might need you. Like, show up and suggest. I mean, I need people who show up and they're like, we need to do this, and it's not, they're not coming to me going, you need to do this because I want it. They're going, we need to do this and I'm willing to help, right? I'm going to be there. Like, so show up and get involved and roll up your sleeves and offer something to your community, whatever community, that is, and be a difference that way. I put in the chat, Robert Schuller decades ago, said the key to church growth was really simple. And I'm finding myself returning to the simple things a lot lately, as much as we want to reinvent and, make it new. And it's like returning to the basics. And he said, church growth is nothing more than find a need and fill it, find a wound and heal it. That's it. Just do those two things wherever you are with whatever you got.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. Let's go over to Cindy, Reverend Cindy.
Yeah. So I feel like we need to honor our humanity, even as ministers and spiritual leaders and all of that, that when there is pain and you want to cry, you cry. When you want to be angry, you stomp your feet, whatever you need to do to allow that emotion to move through so that you can get back to that place of calm and peace. There's a great book, if you've not read, See No Stranger by Valerie Kaur. And she talks about how this time of darkness that could feel like the tomb, right? Is maybe this darkness is not the darkness of the tomb, but the darkness of the womb. But we still have to move. There is still pain. There is pain that comes with birth, and it's messy. And maybe you don't want everybody to see that. I know I don't want everybody to see that, but I have my go-to people and I have my practices and my things that I do for myself so that I can move through that emotion and that pain and come back to center. But not feeling it or pushing it down is spiritual bypass. And I think that's a lot of what has gotten us to where we are right now.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Coming back to Dr. Raymont. Wrap us up on this one, sir.
So everything that has been said, because I don't want to repeat, it's already been said. Great stuff. So one important thing that I've noticed is, and Dr. Tracy Brown alluded to this concept, whatever you don't have as your intersection, have conversation with someone who does. If you are straight and you don't, and I mean, I got a gay friend. No, I'm not. I'm talking about have conversations with people who are not like you. Have your certain political affiliation, have conversation with the others. Your certain race, ethnicity, shade, color, have a conversation with somebody else. And realize that people are not a monolith. So have conversations with multiple people of multiple things. Just because, once again, oneness. It's easy for me to pontificate about there's only one power and only one presence and yakety smackety. But if I'm not having real conversation, and I mean real conversation to the degree where, and I want to make sure I'm saying this person's name right. So if I'm not, correct me. But recently there was a non-binary veteran, Elisha Ray Shoup, I believe, who unalived themselves and left a note for our current administration. If I, as the minister of a community, am not having conversation with people of the transgender community, non-binary community, gender non-conforming, gender rich, gender fluid, gender, I don't use a term because the all that is if I'm not having conversation with the entire spectrum to the degree where When I'm speaking, I still say, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to church today. Wait, good morning. What? When I'm referencing God and I only reference God as a he, or even if I father, mother God, I'm still in a subliminal way dismissing them, because I'm still using a binary term for that which is beyond gender and binary, and it's the infinite. Have conversations, meet people, talk to people, get to know people. Like, for real, get to know people. And I mean stretch. A great many of us, that we don't have deaf friends, we don't have deaf congregants, we don't know American Sign Language. And yes, this is something that is very important for me. Find ways to visit the deaf, where the deaf people hang out in Pittsburgh, where do the deaf people hang out in, Jacksonville, where do the deaf people hang out in Dallas, where do they hang out? Go and meet them. Just start having conversations. Everything that Reverend Cindy referenced about, telling the truth and the idea of peace. I'm not gonna be able to keep the peace if it's an arbitrary, abstract thing that I'm not applying in relationship. I have to be, to her example, I have to identify that I have family members who are whatever that is, that I'm like, that makes my back itch. I don't, right there is my invitation. Have conversation with them and bring the awareness and the truth of peace to this. If I can't get my own house in order, then a world that works for all. Have conversations, meet people.
Amen. I hear some themes emerging, and I want to recognize a few things that we're seeing in the chat box here as well. Christine says the beauty of the moment is that if your local community doesn't meet your needs, you have choice. I'm grateful for expanded online community. I hope you're talking about us, Christine. So thank you very much. And a real quick poll of the panelists. Please raise your hand if you've ever been in a local spiritual community that did meet all of your needs. That's what
all.
Raymont's been in one community that's met all his needs. Right on. I think you see how rare that is. Willa Johnson's with us. Too many in our communities are unwilling, uncomfortable to call a thing a thing. It takes realness and courage to be so. Oh, how I know. That might be another program sometime, Willa. Maybe we need to get that conversation on the air. And of course, Tracy Brown, your name's being screamed in this room. Drop in, Tracy, you're welcome to join us in the final section. Just, you know how to get into the room. She's saying, amen, Bishop Durrell. If you avoiding you're supporting oppression, that's political. If you engage in change, that's political. We need to stop pretending we can escape our role in the collective. Very, very true. All right, folks, we're going to take another quick break. Let our panelists stretch those legs and take a sip of water. We're going to say thank you to our organizational sponsors and individual donors while we do that. But stay tuned. We've got a whole nother section coming, and we're not done yet. We'll be right back. Yes. Thank you to all of our organizational sponsors and individual donors. It's thanks to folks like you that we can host these types of conversations and share this message out into the broader world. If you'd like to become a part of what we're doing here at New Thought Media Network, please head on over to the website, ntmedia.org/donate, or find the donate button. Make it a monthly donation, and we'll include you or your organization in our future thank you videos. If you'd like to learn more about becoming a sponsor or an organizational donor, please reach out to me at that email. All right, back into it, folks. We have just so much going on going on in the chat box. I have been trying desperately. And here's one that just came in. You didn't ask here. You didn't ask, but here it is. New Thought has never been more friggin' relevant. Thank you, Reverend Dr. Michelle Wadley. Anyone on the panel? What haven't we said yet? What's still out in the world that we need to make sure is covered here tonight? And a hush.
I didn't get a chance to weigh in on what one thing we can do Okay. All right. So in regards to that one thing that we can do, something that really stood out to me, and Cindy, Reverend David mentioned that when you mention self-development or empowerment to young people, there's this kind of turnoff. But when it's framed in this context of empowering you to do the work that you want to do, listening to your intuition, learning to identify that difference between your intuition and your inner shit talker, that's been the work that I've been doing. I created this 90-day program around making peace with your inner shit talker. And I really see, for me, with that, the purpose of that program is it's approachable spiritual practice. So the way this program is designed is there's an affirmation, there's a question to journal on or meditate, there's a song of the day, there are TV shows, and there are movie recommendations. And the idea of it is making spiritual practice approachable, of recognizing that when our entire life is spiritual, that we get to listen, hear our intuition tell us very clearly what is ours to do, and have that path laid for us, where we don't need to know the how, we don't need to know the what. I made a comment to Reverend David online the other day where we were talking about like what's happening next in the world and who's going to save us. And I was like, Rev David Alexander, it's about to be you. Like the fact that each one of us is doing that work, that Cindy's mentioned about her own experience of spiritual practice, that who we are as spiritual leaders is providing that community space for people to identify what set of practices work for them, to extend beyond this concept of meditation being else, but really recognizing that spiritual practice is something that can look different for all of us, and identifying that right thing for us individually so that we can hear our intuition loud and clear and trust it fully with our whole heart and being. This is how we transform the world. This is how we co-create a world that works for everyone.
Reverend. Woo! Yes, yes, yes. How about from anyone else? What's some next steps? Tracy Rhymes has been asking this. What are some next steps? What can we look forward to, or what? Durrell, it looks like
I like steps. I like steps. I like bullet points. I'm very linear in my thinking, and so I've got some steps here. First of all, and the mentor that changed my life with a phone call. One of the things she used to say to me is what I suffered from was not enoughness. And it occurs to me, we've got to get over our not enoughness. My center's too small. My ministry's too new. I don't have enough, fancy education or whatever. We always have an excuse. And she also told me, you'll always find something to attach your fear to. So you got to heal the fear, because otherwise you'll just find something else to attach it to. She was so wise. But I'm still having to relearn that and remember that whenever I'm suffering from not enoughness, I'm not as good to the world as I can be and as I ought to be and as they need me to be. And so one of the things we can do is heal our not enoughness, heal our fear, so we don't attach it to something else. One of the things we think we're not good enough is that I don't have this gift or that gift, or but you have a gift. Start where you are, and then you can meet people where they are. And so there's three things in most centers and ministries that I think people are needed overall, and not everyone has all three things. Groups especially, they're focused on community, cause, and corporation. They're focused, and nobody has all three of those gifts. Not everyone is a good administrator. Not everyone is a good community builder. Not everyone is a good rebel rouser for the cause. But you're good at one of those. So do that, and then find other people who are good at the other things and engage them. And that way, you don't feel not enough because I'm only good at the liberation stuff. Meanwhile, I'm not returning phone calls. I'm not paying the rent. You need somebody. There's a volunteer dying, a student, someone just dying to do those kinds of things. And so let them. I think the biggest secret to my success, as successful as I think I am or whatever, is my innate instinct to say yes. And so yeah, people are doing things that I get credit for sometimes, but it's them. God bless them. So, and it's only fear that would make you say no. Oh, they'll show me up there. No, you're going to look good because more things are going to happen than ever before, and you're going to be the genius that said yes to this other genius. So, I think those are the steps we can do: is heal our fears, and and source out, own what we're good at, and just source out the rest. Somebody wants to do what you're not very good at, and then suddenly your thing is good at it. I also want to say about the feeding thing. Once told me that they weren't being fed. I said, well, you can either go somewhere else and maybe they'll feed you, or maybe you're just tired of wearing a bib and it's time to put an apron on and feed someone else. So there's
hello.
Oh, yeah, ring the bell on that one. Thank you, sir.
So I'll weigh in on this, if you don't mind.
Yes.
I got 3 things that we're doing at our center, which really feels like a revitalization, right? So we have 2 themes, an inner theme and an outer theme. The inner theme is change your thinking, change your life. The outward facing theme is creating the beloved community. And I feel like there's 3 parts to creating, like intentionally creating this beloved community. Number 1 is revisiting our vision, mission, our purpose. We just redid all of that. We did all of our value statement again. We had the community come up with our values. Our board chose the mission, and the ecclesiastical, myself and our practitioners chose our vision. So that's the first thing, to bring us all together around that united purpose. But then how we make decisions. So we're using sociocracy and consent-based decision-making, which revolves around circles. So our music team takes care of the decisions for that. Our gardening team takes care of those decisions. Our youth team takes care of those. And everyone in that circle, everyone on that team has a voice. Everyone is heard. And then the other thing that we do is when there's conflict, the idea of restorative circle. So how do we resolve conflict in ways that grow us, right? That show conflict as an opportunity for us to learn some things and to come together stronger. So those are the 3 things that we're doing in our community very, very intentionally. And we're having fun with it. We're practicing, what we're preaching, and using some real life stuff.
Beautiful. Thank you. Anyone else?
Oh yeah, I'll jump in. I'll add that for those who want to help their community collectively navigate, what Bishop Durrell talked about in the political stuff. I always say, when people say, "Oh, I'm not political," my response to that is, "Did you drive here?" Because stoplights and stop signs and school zones, those are all those are all political. Jesus was political. He wasn't partisan. And that's the same call that we have as communities. And so I write a lot about that in my book, Freedom from Discord, Promise of New Thought Liberation Theology. NewThoughtEducation.com has a study guide for the book. And so if you want to do that as a group in your community, or get a group of people to go through that, there's videos there and questions and all that stuff in addition to the questions that are in the book. And I'm happy to do live stuff with any center that wants to do anything live. And it's a shameless plug, but I really wrote that for communities to navigate this conversation, right? To kind of get over the difficulty. So it's a very sincere offer to, if you want to get over that hurdle, that's what it's there for. And the last thing I wanted to say was just to Bishop Durrell. I had to turn off my camera and go over here by my my library for a second and just tell him, Bishop, I'm ready. I'm ready to come down anytime. I love a good ecclesiastical march and pomp and circumstance. I'm ready. I have
witnesses. You offered. You said.
I am not afraid. I am not afraid of the ecclesiastical things. So, anytime.
I'm so happy about it.
You two aren't that far from each other when it comes right down to it.
Exactly.
Right?
So we're going to make this happen.
There we go. All right.
I have in-laws in the area, actually.
Right on. Dr. Raymont.
Yes, sir.
Follow up on that one?
So I shared it in the chat somewhere. Identify something in the world that concerns you. If your thing is the earth and that concerns you, clean water concerns you, feeding the unhoused, building houses for the unhoused. If that's the thing that aches you, then do whatever you need to do to, like, pick one thing that moves you and get yourself involved, get informed, get inspired, and get in community with people who are already doing that work. I used to be involved. I'm no longer involved just because of my schedule with Moms Demand Action here in my local area and the Survivor Network as someone who has experienced gun violence. Why? Well, because it's important for me to understand that I don't like the fact that as a former public school teacher, kids have to buy bulletproof backpacks. I feel something about that. Well, if I feel something about it, instead of just running my mouth about it, treat and move my feet. Get involved and do something, say something, speak up and speak out. Didn't somebody once say, a gentleman by the name of Nimmler, I believe, said, first they came for the kids who were eating lunch and bullets were flying and no one spoke up, so kids were shot. Then they came for the transgender people and, no one was, so then they came for me and we know what happened. When are we the voice of, New Thought is a prophetic liberation theology. And I know there are people who don't agree. I don't care. It's what it is. It's what it is. It's what it is. It's time for us to get in alignment with that and do what the teaching inspires us to do. Stop saying a world that works for all, but I'm not making my life work for me. I'm not making my relationships and my friendships and my neighbors. I'm not making any of that work. Well, then what to do? As Bishop Durrell said, you might want to address your fears and your insecurities. So whoever you are, ministers, practitioners who shame and guilt your congregation and your community, saying, what's in your consciousness? Do your work. Do your work. Leave them alone. Do your work.
Reverend, bring it down the house. Thank you, sir. I've been saying this a lot, and we're rapidly approaching the end of our programming here tonight, folks. So hang on. I'd like to share one little thing, and then we're going to do some final thoughts, give everybody a 1 minute wrap up, as it were. And I want to thank everybody that's watching today. We've had some great turnout. I know there are a lot of people that are watching, and I know quite a few people that weren't able to be with us tonight that are planning to watch this on the replay. And tonight feels like a pinnacle. New Thought Media Network is going to turn 5 years old in just in less than a month. And to have this type of an experience, not just with this panel, but with this community, and have the participation that we are, feels really, really special to me. And so again, I want to thank everybody that's being here. There's a lot of themes we have heard tonight, and all of them seem to fall into something I've been talking about a lot lately. And I feel like we are at the point that is the natural growth of what a mature practice and understanding of the New Thought philosophy leads us to. We run into a lot of folks that have an immature understanding or demonstration of this philosophy, and that's on us, I believe, to help them to continue to, in the spiral dynamics turn, transcend and include, and offer that hand that says, come with us, because 10, 15 years ago, I didn't know the term liberation theology. And to me, again, this is a natural outpicturing of where New Thought has led me as a committed, ardent, and I believe now mature student of what we're doing here and what we're talking about. So again, thank you to the panelists. Thank you to everybody online. We've got around the horn, and let's go to KC. How about that for 1 minute final thoughts? Dear one, please.
Yeah, I'm gonna use mine as a shameless plug. I have a New Thought Media Network show coming out on March 20th, and in my mind, this show is called What's Up and Why. It's with my cousin, who who is Christian, but inclusive, unlike our troll who we had earlier today. And I see it as this opportunity to demonstrate what that next generation of New Thought looks like, of what inclusivity looks like. And we're going to be diving into pop culture and leading, we're calling it the brighter side of life, leaning into the brighter side of life to make New Thought accessible. So March 20th, What's Up and Why launches. We are on social media on all things. Would love to have y'all for our premiere and to hear your feedback. And this is an opportunity for you to have a voice in the way that we structure and serve as a mouthpiece of New Thought in this inclusive, younger, fresher way.
Beautiful. Thank you. Dr. David.
Oh, no. See, I fumbled because I did my big close with my dramatics with the robe and plugs. I thought that was my final thoughts. So I'll just say that it was a pleasure to be here with all of these brilliant souls. I appreciate each and every one of them and the work that they do. So my plug is for all of them. Go find their work and online and Substack and Facebook and the interwebs because they're all brilliant. And I think what we've demonstrated here is that ministry is showing up in lots of different ways, and it will continue to evolve. And and we're part of that, and we're flowing. And so my last thing would just be for all of us as individuals, get curious and get brave. I think we're going to need those two skills a lot in the coming days. Curiosity to keep us open and just really wondering why and going beneath the layers of our own biases and prejudice and assumptions, getting to, consciousness is cause. Consciousness is the pea at the bottom of the pile of mattresses, right? So get curious about what's underneath. And then get brave about, using your voice to articulate that and to speak up on behalf of others. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Still got the robe right here.
Still got the robe.
I got to go over there to hang it up, so it's awkward. Excuse me.
Reverend Cindy.
Oh, thank you. I'm just I'm watching the chat, and I wish I could engage. I tried to connect, but I couldn't. So I'm seeing all the love and kind of just reveling in that, as well as being part of this panel. Just so grateful. My closing comment would be to just embrace your humanness, embrace your humanity, be okay with the feelings and all the stuff that we're going through, and that's going to allow you then to transcend. We can't go around it. We have to go through it, and it does take courage. But I think the end game coming out on the other side makes it worthwhile to lean in with that curiosity and don't be afraid to go into those messy places. It's necessary, and we all have what we need. I think we were all born for this time, right? We're all here with the reason for being and a purpose, and just lean into it. Much love to you all. This kind of a group, this and the chat and all of this is what I love about New Thought, and I'm just so very, very grateful to be part of this community.
Beautiful.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, Brother Doctor.
So 2 things. 1, we got this. We have already seen divine avatars and bodhisattvas, whether they were the suffragists, the civil rights movement, the gay liberation movement. We have already seen people do this work. They didn't call it New Thought. What they called it was hope. What they called it was the prophetic vision. What they called it was, all of the beloved community. We already have the skills, the capabilities, and the people to do this. Rather than doing the airy-fairy, I hope we can turn that hope into a verb. I turned it into an acronym. Hope is how our power expresses. We got this. Gather together in community. Let people love up on you. Let people nurture you. Let people support you. When you feel like oneness is the furthest thing from your mind, get back with people who will remind you of your oneness and your divinity and your sacredness. No matter what's going on, there is no man, no woman, no person, no entity who can deny or destroy or distract or separate you from your divinity. You got this.
Reverend. I'm gonna say that a lot more. Well, we're almost done, but I'm gonna say that a lot more tonight. Bishop Durrell, you're up.
Well, there's two things, and this is probably as much for the people in the chat as anyone else. When you see something and it's really got you worked up, you're crying or you're angry or you're passionate or you're wringing your hands, I wish someone would do something. That's for you. If you smelt it, you dealt it. That's for you. If you noticed it, so do something. It may be making a contribution. It may be, prayer work. It may be volunteering somewhere. It may be leading the charge. But if it's burning you like that, that's yours. So do something, and you'll already feel better. There's a musical Pearly, and there's a line in one of the songs in Pearly that says, "There's never been a battle won that wasn't fought." So do what you can. I can't promise the outcome, but I know doing what you can feels better than doing nothing. And then the other thing is, again, on Dr. David's wall, there is Dr. King. And that reminds me of the allies we have out there. I have read Letter from a Birmingham Jail 50 times, I don't know. And this year reading it was the first time I noticed Dr. King talking about Jesus being a man with God consciousness and talking about the evil of the cross, not glorifying the cross. That was violence, that was ugly. This is a Baptist minister. And he was saying this in the 60s. They're out there. Is New Thought in hospice? No. It's in the Baptist churches. It's in the Episcopal churches, the Unitarian church. It's with the atheists. The Talmud says, over every blade of grass, there's an angel whispering, grow, grow. This blade of grass got its own angel. It doesn't always look like Unity or Divine Science or CSL or Kriya Yoga or whatever. But we've got our angels, and they're whispering. And if we'll listen and participate, there's a Dr. King out there, not calling himself Science of Mind, not calling herself Science of Mind, but 100% on our side and sharing the good stuff. Oh, we're not in hospice. We're everywhere. And once we start, the word has happened 1,000 times tonight, being in relationship and recognizing our allies and working together and appreciating the gifts people bring. Yeah, we're not in hospice. We're just about to have a dramatic resurrection.
Beautiful. Well, there we go. Nobody's going to try to say it any better than that. Thank you, sir. And thank you again to all of the panel, everybody that's watching. Yes, there's some questions we were not able to answer, and I want everybody to know that no one here speaks on behalf of any of the organizations that we may serve. Some of those questions are beyond our capacity to answer, although I'm sure if you contact any of us, we'd be happy to give you our private perspective. So until next time, I want to thank you, folks. It looks like there is a great support for doing this again, and we would love to hear not only what would be the topics and what would be the subjects you'd like us to cover, perhaps who are some of the panelists you'd like to see in future episodes of this program. Let us know. You can reach out, ntmedia.org. All right, we're out of here for now. Thanks again for being with us, folks. Until next time, we wish you peace and richest blessings. Bye now.